The story is about Baron, also known as Bear. He has secretly been in love with his childhood friend Nikki for years, but he's never been able to tell her how he feels. The four of them are a close group of friends: Bear, Nikki, Sarah, and Ian. They're so close that they all work together at Sarah's father's music store. At the beginning of the story, we see Ian sitting across from a waitress at a restaurant, helping Bear practice how he's going to propose to Nikki. Bear is deeply in love with Nikki. He keeps practicing what he's going to say. He even gets a little too carried away with it. Seeing that, Ian says, "That's way too cheesy. There's no way that's going to work." The waitress then suggests getting Nikki a nice gift. Ian quickly sends the waitress away. Then he gives Bear the exact opposite advice. He tells him not to be so emotional with Nikki. Instead, he should tease her and joke around with her, just like they did when they were kids. "She'll be the one coming to you." Bear had been planning to confess his feelings to Nikki that night during trivia night, but Ian tells him not to. He says, "Trivia night is really special to me. If Nikki doesn't return your feelings, things could get really awkward. So don't ruin this night for me. Just wait for the right time. You've still got plenty of time." Bear takes Ian's advice and heads back home. When Bear gets home, he finds his beloved cat, Sadie, lying dead on the floor. His grandmother had passed away a few days earlier. Bear had just moved into her house, and he didn't know where everything was kept. Because of that, Sadie accidentally swallowed some medication his grandmother had left behind and died. Sadie was the only family Bear had, so he was completely heartbroken. After pulling himself together and laying Sadie to rest, Bear breaks down in tears. Just then, Nikki calls him. She wants him to come to trivia night so they can win the game together. Bear isn't in the right state of mind to go. He doesn't even tell Nikki that Sadie has died. He also asks her not to come over to his house, but Nikki tells him she's quitting her job and leaving. After this, they might never see each other again. Hearing that, Bear agrees to go to trivia night. While they're talking, Nikki accidentally drops her crystal necklace into a drain. When she tells Bear about it, it makes him feel even worse. So, on his way there, Bear stops at a mysterious little shop because he wants to buy Nikki a new necklace. But none of the necklaces catch his eye. Then he notices something called the One-Wish Willow. He decides to buy it. As he's paying for it, the shop owner warns him, "Everyone buys this to have one wish come true. But everyone who opens it eventually comes back here crying with regret." It's a reference to the famous horror story, The Monkey's Paw. In other words, your wish may come true, but you'll have to pay a heavy price for it. With the One-Wish Willow in hand, Bear arrives at trivia night. Sarah and Ian are already there. Bear keeps signaling Ian to take Sarah somewhere else for a while so he can confess his feelings to Nikki, but Ian doesn't budge. Luckily, Nikki gets up to grab some drink. Bear follows her. That's when we learn that Bear doesn't like alcohol at all. Knowing that, Nikki starts teasing him about it. Even though he's carrying the pain of losing his beloved cat, Bear still smiles at Nikki's jokes. But he can't stop feeling guilty for hiding the truth. So Bear quietly pulls Sarah aside and tells her about Sadie's death to get it off his chest. Sarah comforts him with a hug, but Bear stays silent because he feels like he's being dishonest with Nikki. At the end of the night, Bear drives Nikki home. Before leaving, Sarah also gives Bear a hug goodbye. On the way, Nikki brings up Sadie again. Bear tries to avoid the subject. Then Nikki says, "If something's bothering you, you can always talk to me." Bear replies, "It's just going to feel really strange not seeing you every day after you quit your job." Nikki says, "I need a change in my life. I want to feel what it's like to be in love. I can't feel that right now. And until I do, I won't be able to write my story." Bear then tries to give her the gift he bought, but Nikki sighs in frustration and says, "Ugh." The truth is, Nikki already knows that Bear has feelings for her. That's why she keeps dropping clear hints, hoping he won't rush things. When they arrive outside Nikki's house, she pulls Sarah into the conversation and says, "Sarah's always asking about you. What do you think of her?" Bear replies, "She's just my friend." The truth is, Nikki is using Sarah as an example to hold up a mirror for Bear. She's trying to show him that Sarah is crazy about him, yet he only sees her as a friend. In the same way, that's exactly how Nikki feels toward him. Then Nikki says, "If I ever had a crush on someone, I would never let anyone know." After saying that, she starts walking away. Bear keeps trying to stop her, but he still can't bring himself to say anything. Nikki can be a little cold toward Bear sometimes, because Bear has mistaken some of Nikki's ordinary acts of kindness in the past for deep romantic love. Just like in real life, Bear is still stuck in the past. He's still holding on to those old memories, wondering when things will ever be like that again. But Nikki has already moved on from all of it. She's about to leave both this town and her job behind. Nikki quietly walks back into her house. Bear stays behind, sitting there all alone. Lost in sadness and disappointment, he takes out the one-wish willow. Without really believing it will work, he snaps it in half. In his heart, he wishes that Nikki would love him more than anyone else in the world. Suddenly, the atmosphere around him begins to change. A moment later, Nikki comes back outside. This time, something about her feels completely different. She walks over to Bear and tells him she wants to go back to his house with him. Bear feels confused and a little frightened. They get back into the car. Through tears, Nikki tells him she can't stand being alone. Her father has cancer and is close to dying. Bear feels terrible for her, so he takes her back to his house. Before going to sleep, Nikki asks Bear if she can sleep beside him. Even though he's confused, he agrees. Then Nikki even takes off her t-shirt. She rests her head on Bear's shoulder and starts talking to him. Little by little, the two of them grow closer. Nikki's behavior seems far more emotional and obsessive than before. A few moments later, they begin kissing each other, but then Nikki suddenly pulls away in fear. In a panicked voice, she says she just had a panic attack. She starts crying and says she's probably made Bear uncomfortable. Bear calms her down. He reassures her that everything is okay. In the end, they decide to sleep separately, but a little while later, Bear wakes up. He can't stop thinking about what the shop owner said about the one-wish willow. He opens his laptop and starts searching online to see if the item really worked. He finds all kinds of comments. Some people say it's completely fake. Others claim that their wishes actually came true. When Bear goes back into the room, he sees that Nikki is still awake. She quietly whispers for him to come sleep beside her. Bear doesn't feel completely comfortable with it. Even so, he lies down next to her. Eventually, the two of them fall asleep together. The next morning, when Bear wakes up, Nikki is no longer beside him. He walks into the kitchen. The moment he sees what's there, he's completely stunned because Nikki had taken Sadie's body out of the trash. She arranged it on the kitchen floor like a small memorial. Bear is deeply disturbed by it, but Nikki says maybe she accidentally took some kind of medication or something else that made her act so strangely. After that, the two of them head to work together. As we already know, they work at the same place. When Ian sees Bear and Nikki arrive together, he's shocked. He pulls Bear aside and asks what happened the night before that suddenly brought the two of them so close. Bear explains that Nikki's father is dying of cancer. She's been emotionally devastated, so she came to his house looking for comfort. Meanwhile, Nikki can't stop staring at Bear from across the room. After work, Bear tells Nikki that he won't be able to drive her home that day, but Nikki says she only came to pick up her bag because Ian is going to give her a ride home. Hearing that, Bear feels a little relieved. Later, after getting home, he calls Ian. They talk about Nikki's strange behavior. Ian admits that he also noticed Nikki constantly staring at Bear while they were at the store. He agrees that her behavior didn't seem normal at all. Just then, someone knocks on the door. Bear opens it and sees Nikki standing there in a beautiful outfit. She apologizes for how she acted the night before. Then she tells Bear that she loves him. At last, Bear finally confesses his feelings too. It feels like real love has finally begun between them. Slowly, the two of them start a relationship. A few days later, while they're having dinner together, Bear asks Nikki about her father, but Nikki refuses to talk about it. Just then, Bear gets a call from Ian. Ian sounds very serious. He tells Bear that he looked into Nikki's story. The truth is, her father is perfectly healthy. Not only that, Nikki doesn't even have a good relationship with him. Ian also says that Sarah overheard Nikki telling someone that Bear is like a little brother to her. Hearing all of this leaves Bear heartbroken. He goes back to Nikki. Right then, Nikki gives him a small gift. With tears in her eyes, she tells him that she loves him more than anything else in the world. Hearing those words, Bear starts to think that maybe the one-wish willow really did work. Even so, he asks Nikki why she lied about her father. The moment she hears that question, Nikki suddenly starts screaming in front of everyone in the restaurant. She yells that they were having such a wonderful date and Bear ruined it. Bear somehow manages to calm her down. Then the two of them head back to his house once again. Eventually, that night, the two of them become intimate. But Nikki's behavior is extremely strange and disturbing. It feels as if she's under the influence of something. It's almost like she has no control over herself anymore. In the middle of the night, Bear suddenly wakes up. He notices that Nikki isn't in bed. He looks around the dark room and starts to panic. Then he sees Nikki standing silently in the corner of the room, staring at the sleeping Bear without saying a word. Startled, Bear tells Nikki to come back to bed, but Nikki starts crying again. She says Bear doesn't love her as much as she loves him. Bear reassures her that he loves her too. Then he tries to go back to sleep, but suddenly, Nikki lets out a terrifying scream. While screaming, she grabs a flower pot and starts wandering around the room with it. Bear is completely terrified. Eventually, he somehow manages to calm her down and get her back into bed. The next morning, Bear wakes up and realizes that Nikki has cut some of his hair. He tells her never to do anything like that again. Nikki immediately apologizes, but this time, the smile on her face doesn't seem normal. It looks strained and frightening. Then Nikki hands Bear a lunchbox for work. Bear thanks her. But as he's about to leave, something catches his eye. The entire front door has been sealed shut with tape. It looks like Nikki was trying to stop him from leaving the house. Bear pulls the tape off, opens the door, and walks outside. Nikki just stands there behind him, staring at him with a creepy smile. Then something extremely disturbing happened. While standing there, Nikki suddenly urinates in her clothes. Yet that same unsettling smile never leaves her face. Later that day at work, Bear sits down with Sarah to eat lunch. He notices a note Nikki left on top of the lunchbox. Then he starts eating the sandwich she made for him. Meanwhile, Sarah receives a letter from the art school. Unfortunately, her application has been rejected. Bear gives her a hug to comfort her. Just then, Sarah says Bear's food smells really strange. Then she points to Nikki's note on the lunchbox and asks, "How was the cat?" Bear is confused by what she means. He looks closely at the sandwich. In the very next moment, he feels like he can't breathe. Inside the sandwich was a piece of his dead cat, Sadie. The moment Bear sees it, he immediately throws up. After work, Ian asks Bear to give him a ride home. On the way, Bear gets upset with Ian. He asks why Ian tried to stop him from inviting Nikki to his party. Ian honestly tells him that he thinks Nikki is dealing with a serious mental illness. He says Bear probably doesn't realize how bad the situation really is. In Ian's opinion, Nikki's behavior has been getting stranger and more unstable every day. But Bear refuses to believe him. He keeps insisting that Nikki loves him. He believes everything that's happening is simply because she's emotionally overwhelmed. Even so, Ian doesn't want Nikki's mental state to cause problems at his party, so he tells Bear to come without Nikki, then he leaves. Later, while sitting alone in his car, Bear suddenly notices the One Wish Willow packet. Everything that has happened over the past few days starts replaying in his mind. Nikki's strange behavior, her dangerous obsession, and the way she's been following him like a shadow everywhere he goes. Filled with fear and uneasiness, he dials the phone number printed on the package. A customer service representative answers the call. Panicking, Bear asks what's really happening. Then he asks if there's any way to take his wish back. But the representative tells him that once a wish has been granted, it can't be undone. There's only one way to end it. The person who made the wish has to die. Hearing that, Bear becomes even more terrified, but the situation gets even worse. Suddenly, the representative puts the real Nikki on the line. All Bear can hear from the other end is horrifying, agonizing screaming. It sounds like the real Nikki is trapped somewhere, crying out for help. Terrified, Bear rushes home immediately. But what he finds there is even more disturbing. Nikki is still standing in the exact same spot where he left her. Her entire body is covered in urine and vomit. The expression on her face makes it seem as if she's possessed by some evil spirit. Frightened, Bear tells her to go clean herself up in the bathroom. He stays outside the bathroom door. He doesn't want her to hurt herself, or him. While they're there, Bear tells Nikki that he's going to Ian's party that night. The moment she hears that, Nikki lets out a horrifying scream of rage. She knows Sarah will be there too. She keeps crying and screaming. She tells Bear that he can't leave her and go anywhere. In the end, Bear decides to take Nikki with him, even though Ian clearly didn't want Nikki to come to the party. At the party, everyone was playing a game of dares. For one of the dares, Bear had to switch seats. Sarah ended up sitting right next to him. Nikki was clearly not happy about it, but instead of saying anything, she started smiling in a very strange way. Then it was Nikki's turn. Out of nowhere, she began telling a deeply disturbing version of Hansel and Gretel. The story heavily implied an inappropriate relationship between the brother and sister. It sounded more like an incest story. As a result, everyone at the party became extremely uncomfortable. Then it was Bear's turn. His card said that he had to kiss the person sitting to his left. Sarah was sitting there, but before Bear could do anything, Nikki made a strange expression. She pulled Sarah out of her seat. Then she sat down in Sarah's place. As a result, Bear had no choice but to kiss Nikki instead. Once again, Nikki started saying strange and unsettling things. But then for a few seconds, it seemed like she had regained control of herself. There was fear in her eyes. But the very next moment, she suddenly grabbed a broken beer bottle. Then she started slashing her own face with it. Everyone screamed in panic. Bear immediately rushed Nikki to the hospital, but for some strange reason the hospital refused to admit her. With no other choice, Bear took her back home. By this point, Bear was completely emotionally exhausted. Angry and frustrated, he asked Nikki why she acted like that at the party. Without any hesitation, Nikki admitted that she was jealous of Sarah, because she had noticed that Sarah liked Bear. Bear asked her if she really loved him, but Nikki just laughed. Then she called herself his Freak Nikki, even though she used to absolutely hate that nickname. When Bear told her that maybe she should go back to her own apartment for a while, Nikki completely broke down. She burst into tears. Then she begged Bear not to leave her. Nikki promised that she would become exactly the kind of person Bear wanted her to be. Bear simply told her to act like the old Nikki again, the Nikki he had known since they were kids. Nikki kept saying that she couldn't become the old Nikki again, but the very next moment, she apologized to Bear. Then she once again told him that she loved him very much. She wants Bear to love her just as much. Then she starts acting in a truly terrifying way in front of him. As a result, Bear genuinely begins to fear her, but Nikki tells him that she would never hurt him. Bear asks her to sleep alone for the night. Hearing that, Nikki once again pretends to completely fall apart. Then she threatens to kill herself. In the end, Bear has no choice but to sleep beside her again. A little while later, Bear gets a text message from Sarah. She asks him to come outside so they can talk. As quietly as possible, Bear gets out of bed and tries to leave the room. At that moment, the real Nikki briefly comes back again. In a terrified voice, she begs Bear to kill her while the obsessive Nikki is still asleep. But instead of trying to understand what she means, Bear asks her what's so terrible about being with him. In a voice filled with pain, Nikki tells him she was never really with him at all. Everything that's happening isn't being done by the real Nikki. She keeps begging Bear to kill her, but Bear walks away. Outside, he meets Sarah in her car. Sarah shows him another letter. It reveals that she has been accepted into art school. Then the two of them start talking about Nikki. Sarah tells Bear that Nikki and Ian had secretly been in a relationship for the past 2 years. She believes Nikki is only dating Bear to make Ian jealous. During their conversation, it also becomes clear that Sarah may have started developing feelings for Bear. She is genuinely worried about him, and she wants him to get out of this toxic situation. But just then, Nikki suddenly shows up. Consumed by jealousy and rage, she smashes the car window and attacks Sarah. Nikki repeatedly slams Sarah's face against a brick. She doesn't stop until Sarah is dead. By then, Sarah's face is completely unrecognizable. Seeing all of this, Bear is left completely frozen in shock. He suffers a devastating emotional breakdown, but Nikki remains completely calm. She tells Bear to help her get rid of the body. Terrified and with no other choice, Bear helps her. At that moment, he finally realizes that his one wish has destroyed everything. Desperate to fix it all, Bear goes back to the store. He tries to buy a second one-wish willow. He hopes there might be some way to reverse his original wish. In a panic, he tells the shop owner that Nikki has become dangerously obsessed with him and that everything has gone horribly wrong. Desperately, he asks if there's any way to reverse the wish. In a serious tone, the shop owner tells him it won't be easy. He says there are only 2 ways to break the wish. Either Nikki has to willingly wish to let Bear go, or someone else has to find a way to change the situation. Feeling hopeless, Bear buys several more one-wish willows. Back at home, he tries to break them just like before, but this time the willow won't break. That's when he realizes that each person only gets 1 wish. With all hope gone, Bear goes straight to Ian's house. Finally, he tells Ian the whole truth. He admits that his wish is the reason Nikki ended up like this. Bear begs Ian to use his own willow. He wants Ian to wish that Bear had never made his original wish, but Ian doesn't believe a word of it. He thinks Bear has lost his mind because of Sarah's death and the overwhelming guilt. Joking around, Ian wishes for $1 billion. The very next second, money starts raining down from the ceiling. That proves the wishes are actually real. But at the same time, Bear loses his last bit of hope. With nowhere else to turn, he goes back home. When he gets there, he finds that Nikki has turned the living room into a horrifying display. This time, Sarah's dead body has been arranged inside the room like a decoration, as if she were nothing more than a display piece. Just then, Nikki walks in. She keeps asking Bear why he doesn't love her. Bear hands her another willow. He tries to convince her that maybe she can reverse the wish herself, but by then, Nikki is no longer in any state to listen to anyone. At that very moment, Ian suddenly walks into the house. Without wasting even a second, Nikki shoots him in the head. Ian dies instantly. Bear tries everything he can to calm Nikki down, but Nikki has already made up her mind. If Bear won't love her, then she'll kill both him and herself. Terrified, Bear locks himself inside the bathroom. He realizes there may be only one way left to end this nightmare. At first, he thinks about shooting himself, but then he remembers the medication that killed Sadie at the beginning of the movie. To save Nikki and free himself from this nightmare, he swallows a large number of pills. He tries to take his own life, but at the last moment, he can't handle it. He starts throwing up, desperately trying to get the pills out of his system. But by then, it was already too late. In the other room, Nikki breaks another one-wish willow. Then she makes one final wish. She wishes that Bear would become just as obsessed with her as she is with him. Now completely consumed by love, Bear stops trying to save himself. He walks into the living room. His eyes now carry the exact same obsession that Nikki's once did. The two of them share a passionate kiss. But the moment doesn't last very long. The pills begin taking effect. Bear collapses onto the couch. Nikki screams in horror. Then Bear takes his last breath in her arm. Nikki is about to shoot herself too. But the moment Bear dies, the wish immediately loses its power. Nikki instantly returns to normal. But when she sees all the dead bodies lying around her, she breaks down in tears. Because Bear's one wish destroyed everything. And that's how the movie ends. Without a doubt, this is one of the best horror movies of the year. Let us know what you thought about the movie in the comments.